Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Second hour, no Mitch, no Paul today or tomorrow. Paulie will be back from his relaxing, I assume, vacation on Monday as we are getting closer and closer to the NFL draft. Now, Matt Youmans, up on the website of VSiN.com, unveiled his first-round mock draft in the National Football League. Could be 1.0, could be the only 0.0. We will see if that is the case. But we're going through your mock as a whole, and we were talking about Ashton Jeanty. We're going to talk to Adam Hill of the Las Vegas Review-Journal tomorrow. Adam covers the Raiders. Jeanty, it is a small price to lay, if you want, to lay it with him going number 6. We're talking about, what, minus one, what are we looking at here? Minus 125 for him to go. And that was about an hour ago over at DraftKings. Everybody and their mother is pointing to this being the case for Ashton Jeanty. So I wanted to build on this. In your mock here, how many running backs did you have going in the first round? Because for the position, 2.5 is the number. And from everything I can gather, it seems pretty cheap to lay $165 on under 2.5.
I like under 2.5. Actually, when I looked at it, the price was higher. I know the Broncos had Travion Henderson from Ohio State in for a visit, so there's a chance Denver's going to look at a running back at number 20, but Omari and Hampton from North Carolina is the running back that figures to go off the board before Henderson. I'd be really surprised, really surprised if you get 3 running backs in the first round. I think you got to bet that under 2.5.
Seems like a pretty cheap price given what we know here right now. How many did you have going in your first round?
It would have to be a really surprise pick at the end of the first round to beat you if you're playing under 2.5 on the running backs.
You had 2 going. Omari and Hampton at number 20 to the Denver Broncos was your pick. Again, to invoke Silva's conversation with us yesterday, he had the Broncos potentially as a sneaky candidate to trade up to get Ashton Jeanty.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I don't forecast trades and mock drafts because that's how you can completely screw up your mock draft by forecasting trades that are probably never going to happen.
Well, I mean,
right?
But what I think is interesting about that is, like, if that transpires, then I think the chances of 2 running backs going in the first round severely take a hit. Because I think the only reason the Raiders at number 6 would go that route is because Jeanty is there, but it's not such a pressing need that you would then reach at number 6 or trade back to like number 11 and still draft any one of, Omari Hampton, Travion Henderson at that position.
I don't know who the third running back would be. That's what I said. Or even like you're trying to say here, what other team is going to draft a running back in the first round?
Right.
I don't. Aside from the Raiders and the Broncos, I'm not sure who would. So I think under 2.5 is actually a pretty good play. Don't you think that now? Sean Payton proved last year when he took Bo Nix at number 12 that he's not a master of playing the draft like an advantage gambler, right? Because he could have traded down and taken Bo Nix at number 25. Nobody else is going to take him.
He hit on 18 and got an ace, essentially.
Yeah.
And it was like, cool, I'm at 19. Let's just stay here.
This is why I said, why not trade down 10 spots? You get an extra pick, and it still get Bo Nix. Nobody else is going to take him.
Yeah.
But he takes Bo Nix at number 12 because that's his guy. Yep. You want to get your guy. I think it would be foolish of the Broncos to trade up for Ashton Jeanty. I'm sure you do too. But I guess with Sean Payton, we should not rule it out.
No.
I also think it would be foolish for the Raiders to take a running back at number 6. Now, do they take an offensive lineman? I think if you do, you want to trade down a few spots to take an offensive lineman.
I would agree. And I am very curious about that and the dynamic of Spytek versus Carroll and who wins out ultimately in philosophy when it comes to this. But we'll see if that's going to be the case. Adam will have some more.
First of all, they should be on the same page. If Pete Carroll wants to win with a power running game or a Marshawn Lynch type of back, you have to have a good offensive line to make that work.
Right. Well, exactly. Yeah. But that could manifest in, that means we need Jeanty, or that means we need offensive line.
Yeah, this running back, this draft is so deep with running backs.
I agree.
You could take a really good running back in the second or third round. It's not much of a difference.
How many wide receivers did you have going in your first round?
I believe we got 3.
Okay, so over right now is about minus 250, over 2.5 wide receivers.
And if you bet over 2.5, you're going to be sweating it out because I think that third wide receiver is going to go off really late in the first round, right? You're going to get to picks 27, 28. Yep. You would say, okay, where's the wide receiver? You're going to be sweating that out. I would not lay that price. I could see those. I got Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State as the third wide receiver.
Going 29th.
Going number 29 to Washington. And you know what? He might slip to early second round. The only 2 that you know are going to go in the first round, Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas. I've going to the Cowboys at 12. And Teteroy McMillan from Arizona, I have going to the Packers at 23. By the way, that'd be the first time in more than 20 years the Packers have taken a wide receiver in the first round, with Christian Watkins and the torn ACL. And his return's going to be delayed, I think, for the first 2 months next season. Packers have a real need at that position, and if McMillan slips, I think that's going to be a great temptation for them to take him at number 23. And the draft is in Green Bay, and the fans love that pick.
And remember, for our audience, it's worth reiterating for those who just haven't heard it yet, Travis Hunter, at least over at DraftKings, haven't checked the other spots, is a cornerback by labels.
Right.
So he would not be the first wide receiver off the board. He would also not count toward the wide receivers taken. I know we heard from Andrew Berry earlier talking about for them he would be a wide receiver, but in terms of the draft betting, he is not designated as such. So he would not count as the first wide receiver, nor would he count toward the number of wide receivers going in the first round, which is an important designation.
Correct.
All right, the other thing that I was curious about your thoughts, the offensive lineman selected in the first round, under's pretty heavily shaded, minus 200 on 6.5 over at DraftKings. This is a deep class?
I think it is a deep class. That one's a trickier one to bet.
Sure. First guy off the board in the offensive line class, many assume it to be Will Campbell at the number 4 spot with the New England Patriots.
It's one of two guys.
Yeah, he's minus 225 to go in that spot. Many mocks have him there, including your own. And then as you do too, and does the market, Armand Membu would go at number 7 to the New York Jets. He is also the odds-on favorite to go there at minus 115.
I think Membu would be a great pick for the Raiders, too, if they wanted to take him at number 6.
Yep.
I don't know if they'll do that. And if the Raiders take Membu, what happens there with Ashton Genty if he's still on the board? How about Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State? I've got him going to the Bears at number 10. What's interesting is the Bears would love to have Ashton Genty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a team that could potentially move,
moving
from 20, if you're the Broncos, what are they picking, 20?
Yep.
If you're going from 20 to 5 to realistically get ahead of the one team that many people believe is like the spot for him if he gets there, the Raiders, that's obviously much more manageable if you're going from where the Bears are 10 than from 20 in terms of what you have to give up to get there.
You know who I think would be a trade partner too is the Saints at number 9. Nobody can quite pin down who the Saints really like. They know that the Saints, I think we know the Saints don't want Shedeur Sanders.
Yes, and I believe so. We had Michael Detillier on yesterday, and he said not a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah?
Yep, said it's not going to happen.
Okay.
That he believes that to be the case.
Well, look at the quarterbacks they have to work with.
Yep, and he also had a great point that that front office does not have a history of trading up, but they do have should be trading back, so that's going to be pretty interesting and moving around. They get pretty aggressive, so maybe that'll be something too, but that's going to be something interesting to monitor here for the Saints too. But that spot is obviously, everybody thinks that's Jackson Dart. I wanted to get more in the quarterbacks.
I really don't think Dart's going to go at number 9, but I do think he's going to be the second quarterback off the board. It's hard to figure out where, and there's going to be trades made here too. And so I think somebody's going to trade, I would say up around the 15, 16, maybe the number 20 pick, and that's where Jackson Dart goes. The Steelers, high probability the Steelers are going to take a quarterback at number 21.
Save that, because a little bit later we're going to hear from Aaron Rodgers and tie it into the Pittsburgh Steelers, because he spoke today for the first time. He was on his buddy McAfee show, and like you said, there's some real questions about what the Steelers are going to do there at quarterback, because the two guys that are on their roster, both on different homes, of course, one of them being Aaron Rodgers' old stomping grounds with the New York Jets. Rodgers also had some interesting things to say about his final meeting with the New York Jets before he got let go. The other aspect of this I wanted to ask you about, how many – we're going over positional players and how many at each position are going here. We just talked about offensive linemen, 6.5 shaded to the under at DraftKings minus 200. The defensive linemen and edges are a pretty big one too. It's 8.5 shaded to the over at minus 180. How many pass rush did you have going here?
That's a good number. Let's put it that way. I think it's going to be 8 or 9, and that sounds like a cop-out answer, but that's the real answer. So I don't know how you bet that with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, that one, and then total offensive players selected in the first round, 15.5 under minus 135, and then total cornerbacks selected, the only one we haven't really hit on, 4.5. That one shaded to the under minus 295. Total corners selected in the first round.
Which counts Travis Hunter.
That would be Travis Hunter, and that'll be the first one off the board, as many signs are pointing to him going second overall.
Looks like it's going to be 3 corners.
Yeah. Isn't that going to be great? He's going to go second overall. He's going to be the first corner off the board, and he's going to play a vast majority of snaps at wide receiver.
I know. But for the betting markets, you have to declare he's a He counts as a cornerback for everything you're betting. This Jalen Walker, by the way, the linebacker from Georgia, I have going to the Panthers at number 8. That's another guy I think would make a great pick for the Raiders at number 6. We're going to talk with Adam Hill again tomorrow about what the Raiders might do. I think that's a really intriguing spot in the top 10, what the Raiders do at number 6. Has Ashton Genty become too popular of a pick?
Yes.
Are the Raiders going to throw a curveball on draft night?
I mean, I think it just, like, logic dictates that you should probably think about this just a little bit more. Like, in terms of positional need, yes, you need it, but it's a deep position, and there's so many more, like, spots on that roster that they need to fill.
Of course, but like I talked with Adam, we don't think the Raiders should take Genty number 6.
Yeah.
But he said there's a strong sense in the building that that's what they're going to do. That's what they plan to do. Anyway, by the way, Jordan Hicks is getting bombed. If you bet the Phillies on the run line.
We talked about this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, if you bet the Phillies on the run line, you're in a good spot. Sanchez, 4 scoreless innings, actually just gave up a run. Philadelphia, 5. San Francisco Giants, 1, bottom of the 4th.
Over the team total in that first 5 if you went out there and got it too. Sometimes numbers, they can lead you down the right track if that's the case. All right, Visa Pro Summer Special is here. Get your exclusive betting splits from both DraftKings and Circa until August 1st for only $59. Less than $60. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe and get started today. Get access to the betting splits from 2 reputable books and use it as part of your arsenal to bet every single day. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe and get started now.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Did you see what Chris Bassett did yesterday?
I did not. I was at the Cubs-Padres game yesterday, so I was at Petco Park for that. I did follow baseball, but I did not see what did Bassett do.
So Bassett yesterday had an incredible start. By the way, that you mentioned that Padres game. Totally forgot about that because we were watching it from here, and Mike Palm was very much sweating out the first 5 total in that one, and that got a little hairy in the 5th inning, but ultimately got there. So Bassett yesterday, in a phenomenal performance, a part of a great start, opposed Spencer Strider and the Braves. 5 innings, but struck out 10, only walked 2. He's off to a great start this season. What do we have now? 4 starts for Bassett. He's got a 0.77 ERA. He has struck out 31, and he has a 1.07 whip. I was going around and found this from Brent McGuire. Chris Bassett, the 5th pitcher since 1901 with 30-plus strikeouts, 5 or fewer walks, and no more than 2 runs allowed in his first 4 appearances of the season.
Very impressive start.
Yes,
no
yes, indeed. And you will remember Dizzy Dean, who did it back in 1937.
I do.
Of course, yep. Of course. On this list, though, there is a name that I think would surprise people. In 2021, Corbin Burns did it.
He got off to a great start that year. He did. I recall that, too.
He was great at one point. Bassett, despite the strong start, still about 70-1 to win the American League Cy Young. But 4 starts and a sub-1 ERA. And I have to tell you, you look at Bassett's numbers, because that's always the thing, right? Like, hey, is this guy getting lucky? What's going on here? Through these first 4 starts, his numbers are actually pretty in line with what we've seen so far. 0.77 ERA, a FIP of 1 flat, and a expected ERA of 2.81. So there is some, at least statistical backing that this start is legitimate. Now, can he keep it up is the real deal. But he is not getting away with murder here these first 4 starts, and he is still about 70-1 to win the Cy Young. So just keep that in mind.
Might be worth a bet. I actually like Chris Bassett. I've liked him as a pitcher, and I think maybe he's just taking his game to the next level. Players do get better.
That is very true.
Bassett, right now, Bassett is hounding hitters.
I get it. All right, so there's a couple of games that I wanted to point out Major League Baseball-wise. As you remember, and for those who maybe watched The Edge back in the day, this is when the Horns would play. Buy low, sell high, because right now we're starting to get a few starts under the belt, and you're starting to see some of these differentials and some of these numbers really start to move in certain directions. So I wanted to point a couple of guys out on the mound here today that I thought were at least worth mentioning. The first is St. Louis Cardinals are taking on the Mets. Andre Palante is going to get the start. Griffin Canning is opposing him. We're actually seeing this market. We saw some overnights at like minus 145. We're down to minus 130. I think this maybe is a way to play it would be similar to what we talked about with the Phillies. Maybe you want to go Mets team total over here. But Pallante so far has been a guy that might be getting away with some nefarious things on the mound. 2.20 ERA through 3 starts, 16 and a third. He's been solid. But the fielding independent of 430 would indicate, all right, maybe there's something here. So then the question is, what is it? Because you don't just want to blindly bet into these differentials. You want to find out what's going on. Well, the first thing is he has not really been a big strikeout guy. His strikeout rate is the highest of his career, but not by much, 19.7%. Big issue is the command. He's walked 10% of the batters that he has faced up to this point so far. That is not something where low strikeout total but high walk rate you're going to be able to get away with. He's also given up quite a bit of hard contact, hard hit rate of 47%. I think it is somewhat likely that we may be getting over here. Canning has not pitched that well. Flying in the face of the tradition of Angels pitchers leaving and being better everywhere else. Griffin Canning not doing that so far. But Pallante's a guy where you look at some of the numbers, you could probably go against him here. So Mets team total in the first 5 again. I think another candidate today against the St. Louis Cardinals, despite the fact that the market seems to be back in the Redbirds here.
Yeah, I'm not buying Griffin Canning right now either. He's got a whip of 1.53, and you're putting that many runners on base, you're not gonna last long. He's got 15 innings pitched. He's allowed 16 hits and 8 walks, or 15 hits and 8 walks. So I would, if anything, I'd probably look over the total.
You could do that too, or first 5 total as well.
First 5 total too, right? Are you saying that way you control your bet, where you just betting on the on runs scored against these 2 starting pitchers, which is probably the better way to play it. You know, we were talking about the Phillies-Giants game, and if you wanted to bet against Jordan Hicks today, you wanted to do it in the first 5, right?
Yep.
Hicks gave up 5 runs in the first inning.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So if you're going to, like, that to me is that combo, right, is the high walk rate, the low strikeouts, then also you find some really hard contact numbers where he's just giving, the guys are just lacing line drives, but they're either not finding the field, whatever it is. And I think that's definitely a sign that you're going to play against some of these dudes. For example, too, I don't think that this is going to be a long outing, but what's going to be interesting as well is let's go to Cleveland and Baltimore, where you have 2 guys that I think could totally get knocked around a little bit later today, too. Bibby gets the start for the Guardians, 4.40 ERA, but a FIP of 6.92. You can make the argument that he's even been worse than what he's allowed up to this point, despite the fact that he's got the ERA that's nearly 4.5. The walk rate is pretty high, especially from what it was at the beginning portion of his career. K rate's way down when you're talking about inducing some of these swings and misses for him. And he got tagged for a couple of homers early in 3 starts. But on the other end, you get Tomoyuki Sugano, who is getting the start here for Baltimore. And this is not translating over to Major League Baseball so far for him. 3.86 ERA is solid on its surface, but a 5.44 fielding independent. Strikeout rate is very minuscule, 8.1%. He's not getting guys to swing and miss at all, but he is walking quite a few dudes. If you're going to keep that up, you are going to get blasted here at some point. He has been pitching way above his head, especially if some of these numbers are correct. This game potentially going over, I think, is a total candidate as well. Number right now, we saw this open 8.5. It's actually sitting at 8 most spots with some altering juice. But I think that this would, to me, scream that 2 dudes coming out there that can get lit up by these respective lineups here today.
I'd agree with that, too. I think when you look at those pitching numbers, the only way you can play that's over the total. But you said that total came down from 8.5. I see an 8.5 out there at a couple other spots.
I mean,
offshore, but basically in Vegas it's painted 8.
You never know what the market really sees in some of these. For example, the game that we talked about yesterday, this series between the Giants and the Phillies, which has been pretty interesting. I think that went from 8.5 shaded under to 8, like across the board, minus 110, right? So there was like a little bit of movement toward the under, and then that had 15 runs scored. So I'm not going to be too terrified off of the premise.
I wouldn't be concerned.
Yeah, but it seems like that is the case. So those 2 guys definitely worth looking at to potentially get lit up here. And the other 2 pitching matchups, or the other pitching matchup, I should say, that I thought was worth pointing out, Kansas City on the road against Detroit today. Reese Olson versus Michael Lorenzen. So Olson's off to a tough start, 6 flat on the ERA, hasn't really been great. The walk rate's been really high, but getting a little unlucky on balls in play, Matt. BABIP of about 364 against him. But if you look at some of the underlying metrics, his ERA of 6, he's got a FIP that's actually under 4 at this point right now. His hard hit rate is up there. But if you look at some of the indicators for him, you would say that Reese Olson's maybe deserving of a little bit more in terms of what he has put out there. And then on the other side, you get the Kansas City Royals. Lineup for the Royals, as we have kind of seen throughout this year, has, is it safe to say, not been the most dynamic in Major League Baseball?
It's been a bad joke, actually.
Right.
The Royals are 8-11, which is not bad, but they're, as a team, batting .206.
Yep. 28th in weighted runs created plus. They're not a good lineup at this point right now.
Bobby Witt batting 310 and the team batting 206.
Right. So if we're right here and that Reese Olson is potentially pitching better than what some of the numbers are saying on its surface, then maybe the Tigers at a first 5 and backing Olson against this lineup is going to be something worth looking at here against the Royals team that has been absolutely abysmal on offense. It's also worth noting Lorenzen. Lorenzen has actually been pretty solid so far this year, too, through just 3 starts and 17 innings, 3.71 ERA, 3.60 FIP. But maybe go under for the first 5 if you believe that both of these guys are pretty legit. But I do think that backing Olson today against this Royals lineup could be worth it.
Just mention kind of a developing situation. Sure. The total on the Giants-Phillies game today was 7.5 at most spots. There were some 8s out there as well. If you played that over, you had to be thrilled in the first inning. It was 5-1. There has not been a run scored since in the 5th inning. How about if that stayed under the total with 6 runs scored in the first inning?
That would not be fun.
I'm not rooting for that. I'm just saying keep an eye on that situation. Yep. Might be developing.
By the way, earlier today, too, just worth pointing out in terms of solid pitching performances, don't look now, but the Heen Dog, Andrew Heaney, continues to perform pretty well. Had another good start today.
The Heen Dog?
Yeah, Heen Dog. 7 1/3, 5 hits, 4 strikeouts against the Washington Nationals. Pirates won 1-0.
So the Pirates are making big moves.
That's right.
All right, to help Paul Skeens and try to build a playoff contender. 1-0 Pirates over the Nationals today.
I mean, look, if you're going to do it, I think a lot of people looked at this and said, you know what? I think the Heen Dog comes in here and performs very well and gives Paul Skeens the support that he needs in that rotation. What do you think?
White Sox got shut out today?
Yes, they did, I believe.
8-0. A's over the White Sox. Total in that game was 8.
Oh, by the way, I mentioned this at the top. Seattle 11-7 in 10 innings. So how about that? 2 home runs in the 9th to tie it, solo shots. Then you go on to win in extras against the Cincinnati Reds 11-7 there. So it's been a good day of baseball. We got a couple of games coming up a little bit later as well that we'll get into. Kansas City, Detroit, New York, and Tampa Bay as well. Luke, what's my read? We got something here? All right. Thank you for reminding me. Folks, the summer is here. You're going to want to change things up here a little bit. How about bet the ponies? It's what you want to do. Get in on the action. First Bet's got you covered. Sign up now to access exclusive promotions. Bet on hundreds of thrilling horse races every day, right from your phone or computer. Visit firstbet.com, #1stbet.com. Use promo code VSIN200. Score a 20% rebate on all your wagers for the first 60 days up to $200. Don't miss out. Start betting today at firstbet.com.
This is Follow the Money on VSIN.
We've been putting this off. I'm very nervous for the next 10 minutes as we head out to Denver. We got to welcome in our next guest on the Progressive Guest Line. It's a big weekend. Los Angeles Clippers and the Denver Nuggets will do battle in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Chad Andrus, host of 104.3 The Fan, denversports.com as well, is nice enough to give us some time here today. Are you quaking in your boots out there in the Rockies, huh?
Well, I think if you're going to point a finger at this entire situation, it's across the table at Matt there, our buddy. I think he was trying to organize and orchestrate a no-holds-barred Nuggets-Clippers cage match between the two of us here. So not exactly quaking in my boots, but it is a more interesting series than what we've seen here in Denver for the last few years.
So I didn't even realize, JV. I forgot that JVT likes the Clippers. I forgot all about that.
We don't talk about it often.
We set up that spot. I totally forgot about that.
I didn't change my Twitter avatar to Kawhi Leonard dunking in the Jazz series many years ago with Donovan Mitchell. Yes, the dinosaur's like on a 50, 40, 90 clip for like the last month and a half. Yeah, that guy. All right, Chad. So I wanted to start here. I think actually the most interesting on-court matchup is going to be the big guys, Ivica Zubac and Nikola Jokic. Obviously, Zubac maybe a contender for Defensive Player of the Year, having to defend him. But on the flip side, I think Jokic having to defend Zubac is really interesting and has a lot of wrinkles to it. So what do you make of those two going at it throughout the course of this series?
Well, the Nuggets don't defend anybody, so I don't know how interesting that could be. But no, on the serious note, statistically, Zubac defends Jokic better than anybody in the league. And I don't know how much value there is in that. The fact that it's better than anyone else because he still cooks everyone, and he'll still cook Zub there because you're going to get playoff Jokic. I just don't know what that means. I think the only takeaway from that matchup and what to look at there in terms of maybe Jokic defending him is obviously if Zubac does anything that gets Jokic in foul trouble, if he commits silly fouls early like he did, maybe in his first 2-3 years in the league where he would give away a stupid one and find himself on the bench. If Zubac gets him in foul trouble, then obviously, the Nuggets are cooked. But other than that, it's going to be a great matchup in terms of the back and forth, but I don't know that it shifts the state or the momentum of the series one way or the other.
All right, I said in a write-up I did for VSiN that Jamal Murray has to outplay James Harden for the Nuggets to win this series. Do you agree? And where do you think the Nuggets have the edge?
100%. Jamal Murray is the key to everything for this team because they know they can compete really on a night-in, night-out basis with any team in this league just simply because they have Jokic and what he does, being the best player in the world. But if they're going to get over the top, if they're actually going to beat those teams, Jamal Murray has to be an elite player. And let's be honest, it's been 4 years now since the Aaron Gordon trade, and Jamal Murray has been healthy and at his best in one postseason. So is he going to be healthy and at his best in another one? The only one he was, they won a championship. But in this first round in particular, he absolutely has to be because as good as the Nuggets offense is, he has to be that elite scorer, that second guy that demands the attention, that will get up 20, 25 shots and shoot a high percentage to give them a chance offensively. In terms of the advantage, I have to see what Jamal looks like. He says he's healthy. He says he's fired up and ready to go. And a ticked off Jamal Murray is the best Jamal Murray. But I don't know if anybody can trust what he says until they see what he does.
What does this bench look like once we get past the starting five and once you start to dip into the guys that are going to be coming off coming onto the floor? How bad is this bench going to be for Denver, or have we seen some improvements down the stretch here?
We have seen some improvements. I think David Adelman will tend to be a little bit more flexible, especially in maybe the first two games at home than Michael Malone ever was. Russell Westbrook is going to play. You know that Peyton Watson is going to play because they need his length and athleticism on defense at that end of the floor. I'm confident Jalen Pickett will play some. I think DeAndre Jordan will play some when Michael Malone hadn't played him in the postseason. In the past, he'd relied on Aaron Gordon to be the backup center. I don't think they can do that throughout a full run with the health issues Aaron Gordon has had throughout this season. I think Jordan is going to have to play a 7-8 minute stretch in most games. Beyond that, I don't know if anybody else sees the floor. I think the X factor is Julian Strawther. If the Clippers are scoring at will, Strawther is probably going to have to play to try to keep up and provide some shooting, but that would probably be the next guy if they go to 9.
Chad Andrus with us, Denver radio host. So I was told by a source that the players across the board welcomed the coaching change. They were burned out on Michael Malone. What have you heard about that? Do you think that's going to be kind of an intangible? Is that going to help the Nuggets going into the postseason? Do you think this team is going to be boosted kind of by that coaching change?
100%.
Yeah.
The last, up until that change with Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, the last joyful moment in that organization was the parade in 2023. And it had been a den of misery since.
A den of misery. Okay.
Michael Malone and Calvin Booth hated each other. They went out of their way to take shots at the other person publicly and privately. They, were active in kind of subverting their plans and trying to disrupt anything they wanted to do on both ends. And both are guilty of that. A lot of people here pick sides, and for the longest time, most people pointed the finger at Calvin Booth. I don't tend to agree with that. I think he had a very well-designed, great architecture for a long-term plan and a vision to compete in the new CBA. The only thing he didn't account for was he had a head coach that wasn't going to carry out the plan and play young guys. But guys, I keep telling people here this that have been frustrated, and the people who are big Michael Malone supporters, any other corporation in the world, if the founder and chairman of the board and the CEO are on board with an organizational plan and they say this is what they're doing, and then their president actively goes out of their way to be subverting their plan and be insubordinate and do everything they can to crash it, that CEO, that president gets fired. And that is 100% what Michael Malone did to a plan that the Cronkies endorsed, that Calvin Booth created.
Sounds like VSiN primetime. It's a good dynamic here. We just hate each other and just snipe at each other behind the scenes all the time. Chad Andrus with us on the Progressive Guest Line. All right, so you've been marking this. You've been tracking this. I know he saw you on social media. They opened as high as $1.90 favorites. They are now the underdogs in the series. What do you make of what's eventually going to happen, and what do you make of this series flip in terms of the price?
I understand the series flip. This is as true of a wild card team in Denver and a wild card series, I think, as you can get, because of the late switch for Denver, but also because of the health of Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Kawhi Leonard, and James Harden's playoff history. So I don't think anybody can speak with ultimate confidence saying this is what's going to happen. I think if you're betting on this series, there are two very, very likely outcomes. Either the Clippers are going to win at home in 6, or the Nuggets are going to win at home in 7. And that's assuming that all of these players play when healthy. If they don't, it all goes off the rails. All hell breaks loose, and who knows what happens. One team could sweep the other, right? If Kawhi doesn't play, if Murray doesn't play, it's over in a hurry. But if you assume they all play, it's coming down to those plays in the margins, the experience, the best players on the floor. The Clippers are either going to close them out at home in 6, or the Nuggets will close them out at home in 7.
Or the Nuggets could lose at home in 7, which they did last year.
No, they don't have a coach that's redlined all of the players to this point to where they're running on fumes. At least not yet.
Clippers could win.
I did.
4.
I bet the Nuggets in 7 at plus 390, and JVT if it gets to 7. Then you're sitting on the would it be a home dog or would it be a home favorite?
Clippers.
Or pick 'em.
Clippers in 4. What?
I think there's a good chance the series gets to 7. Like you said, if it's going to be a 6 or 7 game series.
Well, what's interesting, and JVT, I know you break down the actual basketball more so than a lot of people on the air. And what's interesting to me about the matchup is where the Nuggets have failed defensively and where they've been exposed are not any of the things that the Clippers normally do or do well.
Sure.
So the Clippers are either going to have to recognize where the Nuggets' flaws are and adapt to what they do, or they're going to have to continue to what they're good at, which it actually plays into the Nuggets' favor because they have a better chance of handling that because of the way they play defense.
Yep, I would agree with that. Chad Andrus again, 104.3 The Fan. Hey, 60 seconds before we get you out of here. Any insight on what the Broncos might do with the 20th overall pick?
I think there is some interest in that organization at looking at possibilities of moving up. If they did, it would be for Ashton Genty, so he would have to go, past 6 for sure to be available in doing that. But most everyone here thinks Omari and Hampton will be the pick if available. If not available, a lot of people are on board with Colston Loveland. I'm out on that pick. I think best available player at 20 helps them continue on the right track.
All right, Chad, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. And pass my worst wishes on to Nuggets fans in Denver, please.
We believe, JVT. We believe is the new slogan.
JVT, what's your serious prediction that you believe? You keep saying Clippers in 4.
Clippers in 6.
6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Clippers in 6, I think it's fair. Chad Andrus, again, 104.3 out there in Denver. We'll take our break here. We come back. We can get a little bit more on this and the series prices for Nuggets and Clippers, which should be a very, very good series.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Big thanks to Chad Andrus who joined us out in Denver. If you missed out on any part of that, you can go up on VSiN.com, hit the rewind button, go back and listen live, rewind, or if you got the VSiN Watch app, you can check that out too. Talking a little bit about that series between the Clippers and the Nuggets. So I did bet this series early on. I do have the Clippers to win this thing at plus 130. I expected it to move in their direction. I am very surprised about the amount of movement we have seen. Some spots are now minus 130 in favor of the Clippers to win this thing. I think that they deserve to be the higher rated team, and thus maybe like a pick is a little bit more fair. the Nuggets have the history. They have the best player on the floor, and they are still a pretty well-coached team. Your interim coach was in charge of your offense. Chad did a great job of spelling out the dynamics behind the scenes of this being maybe even that it's not that they didn't like Michael Malone, but just getting that kind of out of there and not having to focus on relationships and the games that people play behind the scenes in terms of relationships is probably better for what the Nuggets are experiencing here. You see the number for game one. Nuggets are a 3-point favorite. Totals at 224.5. But I do think what the Clippers have been doing over these last 20-odd games is legitimate. And as long as they're going to be healthy, and I always say it, I understand any trepidation you have with this team, but if they're going to be healthy, they're capable of winning this series in those 6 games that I discussed.
Oh, certainly capable. Whether or not going to pull it off. You know, I really liked it when the Clippers added Jeff Van Gundy to the coaching staff.
He's been great.
He's been great. That's why I thought it was a great addition. Van Gundy he'd be a hell of a head coach. He's probably better as an assistant because he doesn't have to deal with all the, egos and things like that I think he had a bit of a problem with. He can just focus on the X's and O's and the coaching. He's like a defensive coordinator for the Clippers. So that was one thing I really liked about that team. Now, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard have played really well down the stretch. I don't know if both can maintain that, especially Harden, who has disappeared in a lot of playoff series in the past. But I'll tell you why I bet the Nuggets plus 390 and 7, and that's obviously a bet you can work with if you get to the 7th game.
Sure.
Is number one, when I heard the source say that all the Nuggets players welcomed the coaching change, and it was like a big breath of fresh air that they wanted Michael Malone out, that made you think, okay, this team's going to get like a big boost going into the postseason. Number two, when the line opened where it did and all the money came in on the Clippers, I had to think, okay, now you got to look at the other side because you've got the best player in the world basically with home court as an underdog in the series. And that's what I decided to play it in 7 games, plus 390. That was up at the Westgate Superbook a couple nights ago. I think DraftKings got Denver in 7 or plus 350. Like you said, you like the Clips, but you got them in 6. This is going to be a 6 or 7 game series. It's not going to be a short series. It's going to be a long one. And if it goes 7, I've got the home team a plus 390 in my pocket I can work with.
I'll ask a similar question that was actually asked during the Super Bowl lead-up, which was, if this is a short series, who is it more likely to be short for?
I would say the Clippers.
Right? Denver comes out. Defense is just abysmal. They're just continuing to play at that level. The other role players aren't helping Jokic out. Clippers can win it in a shorter series.
It could.
I mean, the reality is also that Kawhi Leonard gets hurt in the first game, and then the Clippers lose 4 straight.
Or James Harden shoots 3 for 20. And
sure.
I don't think the Clips are going to go to Denver and win the first 2. I just don't see a short series here. You're not going to take the Joker out in a short series.
No, he's very good. And as I mentioned with Chad, he didn't really seem as gung-ho about it as I am. The Zubac and Jokic thing is going to be great to watch. Like, if you really like basketball, watching those two play is going to be phenomenal, especially because they will post Zubac up on Jokic, and they will make Jokic work on defense. They will put him out there in those high pick and rolls. They'll make him move around. They're going to do a lot. Some of the key metrics here that's going to be pretty interesting for the series. Denver, I think this is kind of what Chad was referring to as well. Denver dead last in transition defense so far this year in terms of opponent points added per 100 possessions through transition offense. They are 30th, 3.7. And in terms of just overall defensive rating in transition situations, they are also 30th, 131.8 points per 100 plays in transition. Clippers are not a team that will run in transition a ton. You'll have Harden, who is a very good outlet passer of the ball. They will get up when they get the opportunity. They are efficient, but they won't run a ton. They've played a little bit quicker, though, this year, so I am very curious to see if that's going to be the case. It's more so off of some steals where they're pretty efficient, but still off of live rebounds, floating around average in terms of frequency of transition plays. So don't know if they take advantage there. And the wild card is Jamal Murray, and if he's going to show up healthy and if he's going to show up at all in this series for the Nuggets. But very, very much looking forward to this.
Well, if he doesn't show up at all, then the Clips are probably going to win a short series. But I think Murray's going to show up.
Yep. It is the big wild card. So I'm excited for this one. There's a couple of series that we haven't really dove into a ton, and we were looking at a few of these. Earlier in the program, we talked a little bit about Boston and Orlando. I wrote a preview on that. You can go to vsin.com. Are the Warriors still your Warriors?
No.
Now that they've made the postseason, for the Follow the Money audience, if you have not kept track of this, you did have the make the playoffs ticket on them at -115, but now they have achieved their goal, and now you can view them through a unbiased lens.
Right. I've been a Warriors fan basically every game, second half of the season. Bet them at the All-Star break -115 to make the playoffs. Now they made it. Now I think they're getting too much respect.
It's a little crazy.
We had Jeff Sherman of the Westgate Superbook on that night. The Warriors were clinching, and he said he made the line Golden State -175 in the series against Houston, which is the number 2 seed, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Salmons at the Westgate said he made it $2, and DraftKings opened it even higher.
-250 was the initial opener for those who did not see it.
All right, so the Warriors play small ball. I think they're still a little bit too much of a finesse team. The Rockets are going to be physical. They're going to defend, they're going to be physical, and they're going to beat you up. And they've got a defender, Amen Thompson, who can make things tough on Stephen Curry, who has a banged-up right thumb, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
You notice he was bothered by that thumb injury in that play-in game a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
I think, and here the Warriors are going to have to get significant scoring from some other sources. You can't get it all from Curry and Jimmy Butler in a series against a good defensive team like the Rockets. So who else is going to step up? I think this is going to be another long series. I thought the value was taking the plus price with the number 2 seed that's got home court advantage and is favored in game 1 of the series.
Yeah. This is, actually think this, outside of Clippers and Nuggets, I think this is the series I'm looking forward to the most.
It's going to be a good one. Actually, both those series are going to be great.
The West looks very, very good. The two others in the Eastern Conference that are much tighter in terms of the price, Milwaukee and Indiana, Detroit and New York are also very interesting series. If you're just joining us here, if you haven't seen the news of the day in the NBA is that Damian Lillard is expected to return at some point in this playoff series for the Milwaukee Bucks. We don't know when. He is out for game 1. That is the one fact that we do know. He will not play game 1, and from there on, the Bucks will continue to play games, every single one of those contests, and pretend like, ooh, will he, won't he, will he, won't he? The price has dipped down to -165 in favor of Indiana, +135 coming back for Milwaukee. Series total games, 5.5, shaded to the over at -175, heavily favored there. But that is the real question of when Damian Lillard will return. I think you and I are in agreement. If I were to set the number at what game he returns, you're probably he's putting the number at 3.5 pick.
I'd say game 3 -120.
Okay. I think it makes the most sense if you're doing it in that direction. Give him the time, let him get ready, and then you bring him back at home.
Interesting about these NBA playoffs in the first round, I'm actually fired up for every first-round matchup in the West, and I'm fired up for none of the first-round matchups in the East.
We're talking about Knicks Pistons is going to be great.
I don't think it's going to be great. I don't know. I'm more intrigued by all the Western Conference matchups.
Unbelievable. The theater for Knicks Pistons.
I'm so sick of the Knicks, man.
Of course.
I'm sick of Knicks fans and all that nonsense. I'd love to see the Pistons pull it off. They're big dogs.
Last time the Pistons won a playoff game, I think Obama didn't even win the Democratic nominee. It's crazy. It's been a long time. Best Bets brought to you by GBank, the official bank of VSiN. I'll throw this out there. We mentioned this briefly, but I do think that with this news of Damian Lillard, it throws a little bit of a wrench in there. But Bucks +1.5 games in that series against Indiana, I think a bet worth making. Do you have any series bet you want to throw out there?
I threw out 2. I took the Rockets +170 and Nuggets in 7 at +390. That's all I bet so far. Also, I think the Bucks, leak that Damian Lillard information to get it out there just to keep your opponent guessing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yep. GBank up the ante with up to a $750 bonus for new GBank Visa Signature Card customers. No guessing here. New customers spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within 90 days from account opening, receive a $250 bonus. In addition, you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads within 30 days of account opening. You receive another $500 bonus. Together, that's $750 worth of bonuses. Apply now at vsin.com/GBank. That's vsin.com/GBank. Subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions apply. We do get a check-in from Spackler on Twitter. Says Denver in 7. Youmans is stable. JVT just looking for a fight. I don't know what that means. Poor Clips should have been in the play-in. It would have hurt less. We'll see.